Hello and welcome to the Business of the Business podcast. I'm your co-host, JP John Posman, the two-band Power Trip, of course. Joining me, my co-host, the financial wrestling genius himself, Mr. Lavie Margolin. Lavie, what's going on today, sir?
Hey, John, I'm here from my sold out apartment. I've sold as many tickets as I've put on sale. No matter if I put more tickets on sale, it's definitely sold out and it will remain sold out.
Yeah, what is going on with that? What is going on with the sellout at Rebellion? You seem to be pretty peeved about it. What's going on? What is the latest? What's the story here?
I'm fired up. I bought both of Penter's books, but by the end of the night, I had blocked him on X.
Oh my
What
God.
triggered me? Yeah, what triggered me here? So, sell out at Rebellion. So it's funny because I started seeing reports of like sellout, and I was like, "What's going on here? Was there like a glitch on the website for the Gallon Center?" But then I saw later that twice TNA Wrestling had tweeted out that TNA Rebellion was officially sold out. So what do we know? That the PW Insider had reported that this was the best-selling TNA show in X amount of years. So January's Genesis pay-per-view did a little bit over 4,000 tickets. So my speculation that this is a little bit above that because from the different sections and what I can tell, and we'll get into what I was feeding to Grok and so on, it looked like a little bit over 4,000 by the time all was said and done. And this should be a big win for TNA, but I think that there's always something that takes them down in the discourse. Not me to be the one to do it. I wasn't the first, but unfortunately, normally we heard about like employees being let go and so on. So, thankfully, and we hope nothing like that. Again, it's not that serious, but why announce a sellout so when it's clearly not? So, by tweeting about it, I got into the algorithms of David Penzer, where he was responding to somebody that said, TNA learning from WWE saying they sold out when they are not. They're using 1/3 of an arena that seats 8K or more people. And look at that hard cam slide, empty seats available. So, yeah, so on the Around the Ring WrestleTix had it about 400 something tickets sold. On the first risers, many of those sections were full, but then like huge sections, like whole sections were not, where people were shifted probably to make it look better for television. And then you had the second riser, where there was just a few people here and there, which was impressive, for a promotion of this size. But David Penzer said a sellout doesn't mean every seat in the arena is full. It means the amount of tickets that were put on sale were all sold. This is very common for all entertainment live events. That's fair, right? Like Monday Night Raw, like the setup, especially years ago, when they would cut off Madison Square Garden and a sellout was 14,500, you wouldn't say it's not a sellout because they killed X amount of seats and could seat 20,000 or whatever. But here, they were literally putting different batches of tickets on sale. So I couldn't avoid getting involved. So I tweeted him, the GA in the section was open as demonstrated by the people in the front. The rest of the section is open, so it couldn't have been sold out. So showing like a second row. And he wrote, they just opened those seats yesterday. The original amount of tickets they put on sale also down. This game of gotcha is petty and silly. Well, I don't believe that they just opened that section yesterday. There were the 200s that were open for a while. But I looked as of showtime, and I wrote, this is what I know for sure. After the show started, tickets were on sale. That's not a sellout. So you could buy like up to 7 tickets at a time, general admission. And then he was treating me like I was an internet troll. They just opened those seats yesterday. The original amount of tickets they put on sale also that. This game of gotcha is getting petty and silly. Then different people were sharing pictures and so on. So I started taking those pictures and the WrestleTix map and so on and fed it to Grok and said, like, getting a little obsessed with it. But how many tickets do you think were sold? So they wrote 3,700 to 4,000. I think it was a little bit higher, especially if we're to believe that they beat a previous number there. So to me, like, it takes away from claiming a sellout when it's like not anywhere close to that. John, what's your like threshold for like calling something an actual sellout?
So I'm kind of in agreement with what Penzer was saying, kind of originally, for sure, that whatever you release, no matter what it is, if you sell those tickets, you sold out. That's to me a sellout. Like for instance, Madison Square Garden, like you said, if it's only if they only have 14,500 because this is the way it's set up, the stage and stuff, then they sell those tickets. It's a sellout. The WWE model, which they've been doing now, I've noticed too. Like when I went to MSG back in March, they released, I think it was 16,000 tickets. Those sold out. They announced the Punk cage match. They needed to put more, so then they opened up to 19,000. Then that sold out, and then it was like a real sellout. But to me, it was initially a sellout because they only said there's 16,000 tickets. They're going to have a stage, and then that's it. So they got rid of the stage. They just made it all seats. So I don't know. To me, whatever you put out and you settle, that's a sellout. To me, here it's a little wonky because they had more seats released or they had more seats available. But to me, when you release tickets, let's say 4,500, whatever it is, if you sold all those tickets, that's a sellout. To me, that's what I think.
Right. Like, to me, I think it's two things. One, it's like a percentage of the venue that you're utilizing. Like, what's the threshold there? And the second is like, don't put a very modest number, claim a sellout, but then immediately have more tickets for sale, especially in something that's like, GA sections. But so like, is there like a percentage threshold for you? So let's look ahead to Slammiversary. It was teased a lot for Rebellion that Joe Henry said somebody that has a tour bus from WWE, and we know it's a very limited amount of wrestlers, would be coming to the show, and they didn't. But let's just say, for argument's sake, the sun shines on TNA and John Cena asks for it. John Cena comes to unify, the title with Joe Henry. WWE and TNA titles are both on the line. So if the show sells out the 4,500 tickets in an 18,000 seat building, and then they put 2,500 more tickets on sale, but they only sell 1,000 more, is that a sellout to you?
Yeah, see that I don't know. Now it starts to get like kind of almost too wonky and too much like, well, what about this? What about this? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's tough. Maybe that's not, but yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I feel like whatever you're going to release, if you release those tickets and they sold out, it's a sellout, regardless of to me the size of the building. But if you're going to release tickets that day, then why didn't you just have them open to begin with? That's where it gets kind of a lot of wonky to me.
Yeah, no, I definitely love the idea of like sort of creating demand. And I know we talked about this on the show, John, like I think it was a couple of years ago, like New Japan was in like a medium-sized venue, and like whatever tickets they were put, I think it was Chicago, like the first time a couple of years ago, maybe not the first time they were there, but like something, they were hot, and like the tickets were expensive, and they sold them out like right away. I think it ended up being like scalpers partially, but we kept waiting for them to release the next set, and that like I considered a sellout because that's what their plan was to do. And then once they put out more seats, it was slower from there. So it was like a complicated situation.
I feel like you just wanted to fight with Dave Penzer. That's what I think was going on there.
Well, I was kind of getting worried because it was like 11 p.m. or whatever. And I was like, oh no, is this going to mess up my sleep? But I don't know. It seemed like I understood his perspective of like, thinking I was whatever, like a troll or whatever. But it just seemed like he was being difficult. And again, like maybe to me, like sellout is something to like highlight and an accomplishment. it's not a like semantic thing. Maybe that's like, the old days of the 5-star match, where if you got a 5-star match, it wasn't like, oh, okay, well, now it's out of 8 stars, right?
Right.
Or for whatever reason, to take away legitimacy from me, like Bruno Sammartino, right? He sold out Madison Square Garden X number of times in a row. It wasn't that sometimes they set up the building for 7,000, to make it work. It was every seat was full. Maybe some of the tickets were given away to business partners or whatever, maybe, but I don't imagine there was a lot of that back then. It was a cash business, right? You're trying to maximize the cash. So, so maybe not as serious, John, now that I talked to you about it. Respect your opinion. But that's just sort of where I stand on the issue.
They're going to some pretty big venues, though, Lavie, right? I mean, they're going to some big-time venues coming up, like good seaters.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It depends how they set it up, right? We may have a lot of sellouts, right? MLW is on a big sellout streak. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with that, but with TNA, so I thought it'd be helpful, right, to have like the venues coming up to know kind of the size. So in Irvine, California, it's a 5,608 seat building, maybe a little bit more than half set up. In Brampton, Ontario, it's a 5,000 seat building, a little bit more than half set up. Tempe, Arizona, that's a 5,000 seat building. It looks bigger based on the Ticketmaster map that I have. And UPMC in Moon Township, Pennsylvania, but really Pittsburgh, from what I understand, is also 4,000 seats. So it's kind of the type of venue that they've been going for. I think when, and it's always hard to predict exactly when, but like for a marquee show, whether it's a premium live event, a pay-per-view, high profile taping or whatever, then the way they're running now, you may do a little bit more than half. But if it's just like a double set of tapings, that's like a big ask. And I think there was like something to running. I know it's not really so much that they have the same staff, Scott Demore and so on, to run in Windsor, to run in Studio Nashville, that sort of thing makes sense also sometimes, because 5,000 seat building, obviously they're not premium buildings, they're more like minor league hockey or like a field house at a college and so on, which are cool buildings. You just have to be a little bit selective about that.
What is going on in the world of the NWA? Seems like they got a lot going on.
Yeah, so they're trying to warm things up with all the different territories. There seems to be like sort of like an election or campaigning for like which is the most meaningful owner or profile person of the territory. Why not? But in terms of their high profile event, the Crockett Cup is next at the 2300 Arena, May 17th. Tickets have been on sale for quite a while. They haven't moved a lot there, maybe first 2 rows and a little bit more here and there. Natty Neidhart is going for the NWA championship, I believe. And a crossover that we don't always see so much talent that I'm not sure if they started with WOW Wrestling, but the Tonga Twins, who left WOW Wrestling under some controversy, are making their debut in the NWA. So certainly, I don't know if they're related to, those from the bloodline and so on, and they have similar tribal tattoos from their picture, but something notable for them to pass through the NWA. And I think Hammerstone is making his debut in the NWA. So NWA kind of picking up different name talents of varying degrees, for this Crockett Cup show.
All right, Lavie, we do have a special guest joining us right now, the digital investigative reporter himself, writing for SESCOOPS. He's a columnist. BJ Bethel, welcome back to the business of the business.
Hey guys, it's been a while, but it's great seeing you again. How you doing?
Hey BJ, how are you?
Pretty good.
Good. Welcome. So, thrilled to have you back. Of course, we haven't forgotten about you, but something that surprised me that put you back on our radar was you're getting a lot of attention on the internet for breaking stories. How are you taking all of that?
I mean, I've been doing this quite a while, so that's not really unusual. Just doing it wrestling wise is kind of new. Instead of, usually I got some elected official mad at me, not WWE fan 69 from New York or whatever. That's usually not that's usually not my targeted detractor. But I mean, it goes with it just goes with the business of journalism. If you report, I mean, the old saying is, if you're not making somebody angry, you're not doing your job. And that's kind of been one thing. I think most of the stories I've broken over the last couple months anyway they've been mostly positive, good news for the business. So but how it is with wrestling and especially the online world, that's been that way since the 90s, since it crept up upon us. But yeah, it's been interesting, but nothing really different.
Let's talk about covering the AEW Max ratings, which we were obviously just alluding to there with maybe some WWE haters or some people online. What is going on with AEW and Max? And it seems like generating some pretty good numbers there from your reporting.
Yeah, from what I've been able to get over the last 3 to 4 months, I really started at the beginning of the year. I was working to try to get an idea what their audience was. These numbers are very, very protected by streaming companies. Netflix gives out, weekly top tens and will give out numbers, but most all of its metrics it keeps hidden. That's the same with all the other streamers. And I was just wanting to see, okay, because ratings are obviously important to television. They're important to advertisers. And right now the streamers have kind of a I guess, monopoly on all that information. And this is going to come into play big time down the road as you see WWE, who's working with Netflix. If they don't get their contract renewed in 5 years, then how is it they market themselves to TV channels, to media companies, if they don't have that information to give out? Um, Tony Khan even said, when he was responding to the story I wrote, that he doesn't get all this information himself. The content creators don't get a lot of information. The advertisers get really kind of targeted demographic information, not really demos like you would call them. Those aren't really the thing, but they do get some information and some numbers. But I was really wanting to kind of go in and see, okay, how do I judge how they're doing and how do I get a number? What kind of number can I get? Also, I was trying to just see what it was that was different with a streamer than it was with what you get with the Nielsen ratings. And I think I've learned a lot in that process. And AEW seems to be doing really well. It varies a lot week to week. There's big shifts and deviations, and especially in the Live Plus One, which was the number that I had was around 500,000, which was 60 million minutes watched a week, was pretty close to what they were averaging, maybe a little bit under that, I think. But otherwise, it was the deviations were 10 to 20%, either plus or minus week to week. Not to bore your listeners to death by repeating these numbers and getting too into it, but it was the idea of trying to show people what the numbers were, how well they were doing. Also, what's this mean for companies? How do you judge it? It's really a different world. And WWE, I got to give them credit for really jumping head first into this with their flagship show. I mean, this is a completely different thing for them. And it's gutsy. And we'll see how this goes forward. But right now, AEW is doing pretty well.
Now, why are the numbers, like the streaming numbers, why is it so hidden? Like, how come like they don't want those numbers out there?
Well, information's power, especially if you're a streaming company and you have subscribers. Really, the number one number for the executives is subscribers. And if there's certain programming that can attract subscribers, then it becomes valuable to them. Because a lot of these numbers executives don't even get. They're pretty well tightened up. I'm not even sure if most of these executives are even interested in it. That may be the reason why. But that's pretty much the nature of it. And TV was pretty much this way before the Nielsen ratings came along, before changes were made there, where TV, this big, the big three networks for years was ABC, NBC, CBS, and for decades for a long time, for years they just had a monopoly on that information. And then they had it in different ways. They calculate it in different ways, and that's kind of how where streaming's at right now. Where this is kind of a new thing, still recently, born in its infancy, and right now those companies have a lot of that monopoly on the information. Maybe things will change down the road. We'll see, but right now it's just hard to get that information.
Crazy question. Obviously, you can't give me the exact answer, but how are you getting the info? You know what I mean? Like nobody's been able to get it. How are you getting it? You know what I mean? Not necessarily exactly. You don't have to give away sources, but how are you getting info? Like, you know what I mean? If nobody else can get it.
I mean, I just worked really hard at it for a while. I mean, we had 3 months. I made a lot of phone calls. I stayed in constant contact with people. I also I talked to a lot of people that I got my AEW TV deal story from. They were helpful in this. Working in TV and in media for 10, 20 years, I've made a lot of sources that have gone on to other places, and that's helped out a lot. But keeping those relationships open, talking to people, networking, being a trustworthy journalist helps. I got a pretty good reputation, and I think that helps as well. I think people know that, if they're telling me something and it's off the record, it's going to stay off the record. But being trusted with this stuff and being able to, report fairly, help people out when they're looking for information, things like that. There's a give and go with it, but I mean, it just took a lot of work. I mean, it was just phone calls. And I mean, to me, that's not different than how I would report on anything else. It just took a little bit of time.
Were you surprised at some of the backlash from some of the fans just because you kind of broke the AEW, the original story of the deal, and basically, between 150 and 185 million a year? I mean, you were kind of, spearheading that, and you kind of revealed that they were going to get this kind of bump, and you were correct. So were you surprised at the backlash? Were the people kind of saying, "Oh, this isn't true," even though what you reported before they said wasn't true, and it came out to be true?
The biggest surprise for me was people saying, "Oh, he's this nobody guy who came out of nowhere. How are we supposed to believe him?" And it's like, well, I just got this TV deal right pretty much on the money 3 months
Right,
ago.
right,
People said the
exactly.
same thing then, and it's like you can read my Twitter bio. Like I've been doing this a long time. I've been reporting. I've been a journalist for a long time. Um, I'm not saying I'm the greatest in the world at it. I'm far from it, but the disingenuousness about that was kind of shocking because Eric Bischoff, Jim Cornette all mentioned me on their shows, and they're talking about how I'm this nobody, and then they use me as a way to try to attack Dave Meltzer. It's kind of ridiculous. It's like you can read my Twitter bio, guys. Google me. I mean, I've written for a lot of places. I've reported on a lot of big stories, big issues, and um, so I kind of find it comedic at the same time. That's a little bit frustrating because to their audience that's only listening to them, maybe they're hearing this, they think it's the truth, but I can't control that. But that was probably the most surprising part of it. I thought there'd be a few more honest brokers on the other side of this, but other than that, nothing really surprised me. I was surprised that it was so vitriolic because for one reason, I shouldn't say I wasn't surprised it was so vitriolic. That didn't really surprise me. I was surprised it was more vitriolic than my Janel Grant, Vince McMahon's case stories. I've written a lot about that case, and I've gotten a lot of vitriol on that, which you expect because that's a pretty emotional. You're talking about Vince McMahon, somebody who's a billionaire. He's been admired for years. He's being faced with these horrible sexual assault, sex trafficking allegations. There's a federal investigation, or at least there was, maybe still is, who knows, right at this point. But that I expected to get a lot of vitriol. I was surprised that the streaming story actually had more vitriol than that, which to this day I don't know why, but it's just how fans react.
Yeah, very interesting reaction for sure. I was actually thinking like, wow, that's great because that means that more people are watching wrestling than we had thought were watching wrestling. So I don't know. To me, I thought it was a good thing, and I actually tried to reach out to Meltzer, and he wrote me back. He was saying that these numbers, would be better than even NHL. Most all NHL games, right? Technically, if they're looking at NHL games, so AEW is probably doing better than the hockey right now.
I think depending on the week and depending on the hockey matchup, they're probably doing better, which isn't really a huge surprise for them. They're in the top five almost every week on TV. So if you apply that to, I mean, if you look at how it's TV, I mean, there's not total crossover, but obviously they're not doing as good as say 90 Day Fiance and some other just massive hit shows like that, and they're not doing as well as the NBA. But yeah, they can compete with the NHL for every now and then. Definitely during some weeks. That's definitely that's something that's been the case for them since they've started on TNT and TBS. So to me, that wasn't that big of a surprise. But I think people kind of take for granted what a success they've been business wise, especially with the TV deal they got. Like this was a $750 million deal, close to it. When this is all said and done, I think, I'm guessing, I think they're getting around 175 to 185 per. That's over 3 years, times three, with an optional fourth year, they could approach that mark. It's a huge number that they've got in their TV deal, and it's great for the wrestling business. And I don't understand it because if I'm a fan, you got to like this because, it's driving WWE to put a better product out. It's driving New Japan to put a better product out. It's driving TNA to put a better product out. It's great for the wrestlers. And, yeah, AEW had a lot of massive creative issues for a long time. I think they're kind of coming out of that now, but they always put on great matches. It's a different style than what we've seen on TV before. I think it's a good thing. I think having different new options is a good thing no matter what you're watching.
To me, wrestling, when I'm watching it, I'm not really watching it live. So when I'm looking at the rating, the number, I'm always like, I don't know, it's a little skewed. I'm either watching a DVR or I'll watch, especially AEW, I'll watch it on Max or I'll turn it on Max. So what's like the average viewer? Because I feel like a lot of people are like me. Maybe you put the kids to bed, or you got something going on, or you had work, or you're probably maybe not watching it exactly like we used to watch it, where it was appointment television. You had to watch it at 8 p.m. So how many people are watching it now, would you say?
I mean, it depends from week to week. I mean, I'd say I haven't really talked to anybody there about numbers since I reported that story. So, I mean, man, that's a hard thing to say because I know live with Nielsen have been hitting around 600,000, except for the last couple weeks. They've been getting more than that usually. The last couple weeks they've fallen out, I think, into the high 500s. You put that together, at least with the live Nielsen plus live plus one for Max, you're probably talking around a million, maybe 1.2 if you're pushing it on when they're having a good night. I think they're also the streaming numbers are probably affected by, you know, uh, just basically, water cooler talk, what goes viral, what people see online, like big moments involving like Tony Storm is somebody that's viral. John Moxley getting his, the bat stuck in his back.
Yeah.
People will go check that out. I'm sure with the Owen Hart Cup, there's going to be some matches that pop up that pop some streaming numbers because they're going to have some 5-star matches in that, in both the women's and men's, possibly in the women's side, most likely in the men's side. Um, uh, I definitely think Jamie Hayter and Mercedes will be a 5-star match. Um, but I think those things, those little incidents, those little matchups, those things help pop ratings. Also, it also depends on what else is going on. Like March Madness probably hurt them just because there's a lot going on with that. The NBA playoffs probably hurt them because there's a lot of other interest. There's only so much time. These companies are now competing just against each other on TV. The media companies, they're not competing against each other. They're competing with the internet and all the content that's ever been made in the history of time. So, whatever's grabbing somebody's attention, it's a second by second business now. So it's definitely hard to calculate. It's definitely hard to see and figure out, but yeah, they're doing pretty good.
Do you know the percentage of cable versus streaming? Is it 50-50 now?
I do not know that number for sure. As far as their audience split,
Yeah, I would love to know if that's even calculable.
I don't
You
even
can
think
figure
it's
that out.
calculable. I mean, the Live Plus One number I got, which was around 500,000 viewers, which would be 60 million minutes watched during a 2-hour show. That was Live Plus One. So that'd be the live showing plus 24 hours afterward. So that's going to be a bit skewed. I would say they're probably like if you go with their live audience, I would say it's probably well over 60-70%, maybe even a little higher that on a weekly basis usually. Maybe that goes up and down, and I'm not sure that's going to change over time. That's going to eventually, over the course of their TV deal, it's going to go more and more towards streaming just because that's how the business is changing. And it's also just because of the availability of homes. Right now, TNT, TBS are in about 72 to 75 million homes, whereas when Dynamite first got on the air, that was around 110 million homes. I think Max is in 50 million homes, and that number is growing. So that's going to cross at some point, and I imagine when that Max out exceeds the number of homes that TBS and TNT are as far as TV, then you'll probably see that viewership flip over to where they're getting most of it on streaming.
Didn't want to overlook this because you were mentioning Janel Grant, but I just wanted to make sure we touched on AEW and the Max ratings and stuff. But what is the latest on Janel Grant and the lawsuit? Is there any updates?
Yeah, just a few hours ago, a few outlets have already picked up on this, but Grant's case, she filed an opposition to a request by the John Laurinaitis, Vince McMahon, and WWE to stay discovery in her case. Basically, they want to pause discovery in her civil suit until they can file motions to compel arbitration. They want the case to move to arbitration per her contracted non-disclosure agreement she signed with Vince McMahon. Obviously, Janel Grant doesn't want to do that. She wants the suit to move forward. They haven't filed those arbitration motions yet. And today, Grant's team filed a motion in Connecticut federal court to ask them to not stay discovery, to continue with discovery, because one, the defendants haven't filed their motions for arbitration yet, and two, because they don't believe it should stop anyway, whether they file the motions or not.
Hey, this is Kelly to whoever's on tour. Do you have a copy, whoever's on tour?
So with Vince, he wants obviously this to go away, and Janelle is really, really pushing it. Are we seeing any sort of favor one way or another, or like how do you see this kind of shaking out?
I mean, her team has talked to her about a settlement. I think that might happen. I imagine this has probably been settled in as far as I'm going to guess maybe the federal case has been dropped. That's been how the Trump administration has run things with the DOJ. But I think that they have talked to her about a settlement. I think it's going to come to that, but I think it's going to be a while. It's going to be a battle to where they want. I do know that there's 45 depositions that Janel Grant's counsel wants to hold, which is they want to sit down and interview 45 potential witnesses to this. And I'm going to guess they're going to be members of the board and a lot of famous names. And McMahon and WWE and Laurinaitis are going to want to avoid that at all costs. But I do know this case is a lot more than money to Grant and her team. They see this as doing something about the culture in WWE. So what happens in the end there, we'll see what happens. I mean, a lot of it's going to depend on what the judges decides moving forward.
Lavie, I know you're chomping at the bit.
Sure. So actually, all this talk about ratings, BJ, I know your extensive background in media, or some of it, and I think you're really tuned into a number of things. But one of them, I think, is a local television network affiliates, and I think one of the stories that isn't told so much is the success of WoW Wrestling in syndication. And of course, wrestling syndication isn't what it used to be, even going back to recent history with Ring of Honor. But do you think that's a missed opportunity for promotions not to pursue it on a bigger level?
I think it is. Basically, just seeing how some of the smaller regional sports networks.
Oh, it looks like BJ dropped out, but I'm sure he'll be back momentarily.
Oh, yes. Yes. Hopefully jump right back in. With, everything going on with the case, it almost feels like we forgot about what's going on with Janel Grant and Vince McMahon, because he seems like he's jet setting everywhere. He seems like he's all over the place. I don't know if that picture was new or not, but there was a picture of him in Saudi Arabia recently. I don't know if that was an old picture or a new picture. I was like, what? Where is this guy? He's everywhere. He's at Super Bowl. He's everywhere.
I'm glad he shaved the little pencil thin mustache. That was a little bit creepy, but people have been noting that although in their report he was referred to as the former chairman or whatever it may be, but in terms of people with the company, especially the family, they're starting to talk about him a lot more. I'm not sure if you saw, John, the Stephanie McMahon interview with Dana White. I wouldn't go out of your way for it if you haven't, but they were bringing up Vince stories.
Yes, I saw that. And he was talking kind of negatively. He said Vince tried to kill UFC, didn't want him out on the same channel, and eventually they got to be out, following Raw, which basically saved UFC. But he was kind of not being as positive as you would think about Vince.
No, that was interesting, actually, John. Like, I feel like the timeline of that was lost because that was after the Ultimate Fighter had been allowed on USA.
Yeah.
And Vince saw like his mistake, I think a big mistake in allowing that, because I think at that time it did hurt his business. There was a crossover of fans. And then the next opportunity that came up to be on NBC together, that's where he squashed it.
Yes. Pretty crazy just to think of, like, he kind of was like, these guys are not competition. Then all of a sudden he's like, these guys are competition. I want to kill them. You know what I mean? He flipped.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it was, the profile of it, although it was definitely getting momentum, like from a fan's perspective right there. To me, like, it was that Tito Ortiz Shamrock at UFC 40, and then you had like Randy Couture sending and Chuck Liddell, and Tito was strong, and so on, that light heavyweight thing. While Pride was huge in Japan, especially with the heavyweights, but as has been well documented, the Ultimate Fighter really broke it out, and they definitely wouldn't have been able to without Vince McMahon allowing that. I guess it was Spike TV, right? Not USA. I'm getting confused.
Spike,
yeah. That sometimes even there's like that whitewashing of history or whatever, where UFC's been like, WWE's been on here X amount of years, and then skip over the Spike break, which I think was part of the, like, not necessarily the downfall of the company, but I think it was like one of the things that like took the company down a notch, like following the Attitude Era as well. Like, just being on a low profile network, they did very well for a while, but it was just like something that took something away from things.
While we're waiting for BJ, what's going on in CMLL, and maybe even our buddy Chris at the, Chris GST, if you will, at PWP, Mr. Suplex News? He's kind of wondering something.
Yeah, so a great question from Chris at PW Ponderings and so on. So first of all, CMLL, they're smartly leaning into 100% Mexicana, as long as we have Arena Mexico. Mexican wrestling will survive. Lucha Libre, of course. So he had an interesting question, which was, what talents from AAA do you see jumping over to CML over the WWE deal? So I don't want to go too far outside of my area of knowledge. So to me, I think anyone that would have the right opportunity to, especially to go to WWE or get a WWE deal that's significant, would probably take it, unless there's, other reasons outside of what we know, maybe personal reasons and so on. But I think it's going to be about the opportunity that WWE offers once they have their full fingerprints on AAA. And I think it's going to break down to a few different things. One is like people with checkered pasts, right? Like Alberto Del Rio is the champion of AAA, as we know, but like, you know, there've been some issues there. You know, do they want to get involved again? I would say no. There's, of course, has been reported on and accusations and so on, allegations, I guess you say, with WWE's superstar right now, Stephanie Vacker, who had dated El Suatreto. I apologize mispronouncing that, but I've never seen him work and so on. But if he was a prospect, given the allegations, I think that would be, of course, you know, an X in his corner. Interestingly, I know a lot of people are speculating like Sam Adonis, but like given, you know, his connections to WWE, but I think like if they wanted him, he would be there already. And like anti-American gimmick, I don't know if that's what they're going for now. Somebody like Messias is older. Pimpinella Scarlata, I don't think that's like the imaging that they're going for. I know it means, you know, a different thing in Mexico and so on, like you know, certainly not being portrayed in terms of like a negative thing. It's just, it would be very different perception maybe to the US market that isn't used to that, even though performers gotten attention for that. Here they don't really do minis at the moment. There's a lot of older wrestlers. I think somebody that would get an offer that might turn it down depending on the nature of the offer would be Psycho Clown. Like I see Psycho Clown as sort of like I know this might sound funny, like a Bruiser Brody, meaning that he can write his own ticket. He's a big draw in terms of like opposition and independent shows. So that might make the most sense for him to stay independent, unless the offer was such that like it just made it worth his while. So like I think I'm thinking about it from like a different perspective, less leverage that AAA wrestlers would have, but those that might not get the opportunity for a variety of different reasons.
Interesting. What's going on in GC Dub? Well, actually, before that, there's a bunch of guys though that are going to be WWE bound. That's for sure. Like, or are going to stay there. But I feel like can be used in WWE, like Vikingo, who was on WrestleMania. So it's interesting to see who's WWE's going to kind of pick and say, oh, we want this guy, we want that guy. You know.
Yeah, no, and I think the interesting part about Vikingo is that, you know, working collaboration with AAA, you know, it was Mass Republic that had the rights to book them. So it'll be interesting to see like how that shakes out, because we know Vikingo, you know, obviously there's a strong relationship now, but with like he's going to be, or I guess he was he just on the TNA Rebellion show?
Yep.
I know he was advertised, right? So there's that sort of thing. Like I don't like, those talents that have crossed over even to AEW and like higher profile with GCW already like come over. So I think they'll be restocking again, not going too far outside of my area of knowledge and so on. I don't want to get like eviscerated by Lucha Blog, but I think it's sort of like they have this base, a high profile Mexican lucha libre promotion, whether it's traditional or non-traditional in the way people describe it, and they can sort of like pull from basically wherever they want, right? Like who's in CMLL, who is in NXT that they want to send down, who do they want to supplement it with some WWE talent. It'll look the same way in a totally different way that we talked about how the Evolve may look and WWID, which we haven't heard much about, right? In the last couple of weeks, I guess, you know, recovering from WrestleMania, but like AAA will look very different in a year or 18 months, even if Conan remains the booker.
What's going on with GC Dub?
So GCW, a little lighter this week. I know we talked about it, I hinted at it. Everyone go check out the Wrestling Estate, which is relaunched. And it features the 10,000, the article about the collective drawing 10,000, according to my sourcing with Brett Lardell in terms of adding up the numbers. He never gave me the number 10,000. I'm just adding things up together and looking at the WrestleTix numbers as well, but just looking ahead a little bit, skipping some of their shows in May. We talked about Atlantic City, Tournament of Survival, and Cage of Survival in Atlantic City. That's certainly the first day. Tournament of Survival is a big draw. Going to Little Rock, but I haven't seen the tickets that they've been on sale on June 20th, so we'll have to watch that. Return to Hartford on July 5th. The July 4th Secret Backyard Show will, of course, be the day before, where people are just invited. July 11th in Texas, back to Gillies. I'm waiting for more information on the Coney Island show at Maimonides Park in Brooklyn on July 19th. Triple Shot in Tokyo, which is always a cool thing to see. Indianapolis will actually be in like a state park where they were in COVID. This will be on my birthday, September 13th. In the UK, Bloodsport, I'm sure that will do well, and always fun to watch, markets that are not on the radar as much. Anchorage, Alaska on October 4th.
What is going on with Vice TV and some ratings?
So, first of all, to give like perspective on the importance of Dark Side of the Ring, it's the top rated, not surprisingly, Vice show. Obviously, with cable and so on changing, the rating expectations are changing, but 134,000. Then the second most is the BYB Extreme Fighting. So the bare knuckle, 58,000. And then the third is Arena Football 1. The Arena Football, it died, but some of their markets kind of formed again and so on. So Friday night's Arena Football, I've been curious, but I haven't had the chance to get there to watch it. But apparently not too many people have, as I was surprised to see that this is doing between like 7,000 and 10,000 people per football matchup.
Not great there, but what about WB and Netflix? What's going on with them?
Interesting article from the BBC, Harvey Bell. WWE Netflix deal will boost UK ratings. A deal between WWE and Netflix has been helping to boost audiences for wrestling shows in the UK. Ricky Knight said that it was making more people want to go and see wrestling. It helped local shows in a big way. He hoped a boom in business could provide more scope for independent promotions to tour around the country rather than being fixed in one county or region. Let's see. Independent promotions have long been the backbone of wrestling. WAW has itself produced a number of talents that have gone on. We've got a few guys out there who have taken the name out there with them. They always put us over when they do interviews, which is nice. There's a lot of companies out there now. A lot of them are doing well, which is good to see. I'm one of those promoters that wants to see the other guys do bad. I'm a British wrestling promoter who wants to see British wrestling survive and get better. Oh, I'm not one of those, of course. Let's see. I'm using other promoters, guys, which gives them good exposure, and everyone is helping everyone at the moment. While WAW has visited Suffolk regularly, it has not put on a show in Ipswich since 2017. Asked about a return to the area, Knight revealed, we're looking from next month to start spreading our wings again. He remained tight-lipped on where the promotion could be headed, but urged fans to look out for a WAW poster in their area soon.
All right, let's talk Poughkeepsie versus White Plains. Let's talk about Northeast Wrestling versus ACW, Lavie.
Yeah, so, along Hudson County and so on, upper Westchester into, the next region there. But it's interesting to watch as NEW had forever been at the formerly known Mid-Hudson Civic Center, and now they're focusing on a Westchester County Center show. So not to doubt WrestleTix, but I'm curious to see what this number ultimately means, because County Center has capacity of 4,295 seats. It's currently set up for 2,496, and they distributed 1,481 tickets so far. That seems a little bit high to me, although County Center generally always does well, NEW always does well or had
Great
done
venue.
well. But I feel like some of those tickets were not for sale. I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of it eventually. But ACW, it's always hard to come back, right? They had a sold out show at the formerly Hudson Civic Center, MJ Neshawat Convention Center. Current setup 1274 with 571 tickets distributed. It had felt like it was a while away, but it's not too far. May 17th. But interesting, John, I don't know if you saw this. They're going to have their own Hall of Fame at the Poughkeepsie building.
Oh, I didn't see that. Interesting. Cool venue over there, too. That's nice.
Yeah, to like honor the wrestlers that have been through, and basically, with those WWF tapings in the 80s, it's like everyone has been through.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah. I wonder who the hell's going to be in that Hall of Fame. That's a lot. Shit.
Yeah.
Very interesting because I don't know if BJ's coming back because looks like he might have lost some connection there. But we got some great info from him, though, for about AEW Max and about Janel Grant. But, Lavie, come on. What's your relationship advice? What is this story? I'm dying to know. I've been dying to know all day. What is this?
Yeah, John, we're gonna change gears here. We're both married men with children, wives,
Yes.
all that sort of thing. So it's time for us to give some advice. So this might be fake. It's from Reddit. Some people don't feel it's real, but I think we might need to wake some people up, John. Let's see. So this is where people say, like, should I end the relationship or am I the asshole or whatever? So let me read the story. My husband was into pro wrestling as a kid, fell out of it, but over the last few years, he's eased back into it. I've never been a pro wrestling fan. I thought it was something that people watch as kids and grew out of, but he's always been obsessed, and it's escalating to a point where I no longer feel comfortable. It started harmless enough. He'd watch the pay-per-views like WrestleMania. Then he started wrestling recaps of the weekly shows. Now he's glued to the couch. Every night there's a live pro wrestling event. He's watched multiple wrestling shows, not just WWE. He started spending money. I mean, a lot of money on merchandise, t-shirts, hats, action figures, the fake belts. I was okay with this, as it was nice to see his passion reignited for something. He's been in a rough spot with work lately, but now pro wrestling is the only thing he cares about. He yells at the TV like he's part of the crowd, cheering or booing. When he's watching and when he's not watching, he constantly shouts out their catchphrases randomly. He says things like, "Yeet, acknowledge me, you can't see me." He actually gets irritated if I don't play along with him, like if I don't raise my hand when he says, "Acknowledge me." This past weekend was the worst. Those of you who know it was WrestleMania. He asked me to refer to him as the final boss all weekend. I laughed it off and thought he was joking, but he wasn't. We actually got into an argument about it Saturday evening because he said I wasn't supporting him in the way he needs, and that whenever we're watching wrestling, I look bored, disinterested. I look that way because I am. He's got to be watching 15 hours a week. When Jey Uso won at WrestleMania, he literally jumped on top of our couch, waving his arms. It was embarrassing, and I left the room. I don't want to say too much regarding our intimacy, but he's asked for a lot of role-playing lately as well. It's made me very concerned. The thing he's asked me to do and say made me super uncomfortable. It's all wrestling related. Things have taken a toll on me mentally. It's nonstop. He sends me names of Roman Reigns and a bunch of other wrestlers. He talks like them, acts like them, and demands I participate in his little performances. Sunday night, the wrestler he wanted to win didn't win, and it's still affecting him today. His mood's sour, and he seems depressed. I hate to admit it, but it's been kind of nice. He hasn't been as loud and as noisy as usual. So Reddit, I need help. I just don't think I can do it anymore. He sings the wrestler's songs. He does their sayings. He's got all their t-shirts. He's even got tickets for us to the next show coming to in about 3 weeks. But I just don't think I can take it. John, should she dump him?
She shouldn't dump him. I'm going to reverse it here. He should dump her.
John, you know what was unforgivable to me? I can't take the felt. I mean, it's fine for kids. I know we talked about that. Nothing wrong with that, 100%. But like adults with the fake belts, like I'm sorry, like when you walk around with it over the shoulder, like it's time for him to for her to let him go. Like, I mean, I think what it really comes down to is he sort of needs other friends that watch wrestling. I mean,
yes, not your wife or girlfriend. Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Obviously, that wouldn't satisfy his intimacy needs. I don't know where that's going, but putting that aside at the moment, the other thing is like to joke around, like talk about wrestling with someone. It's just like anything else. Some people are obsessed with football or whatever, but you have to put it aside, be a little bit mature about it. I think we've all been to some degree, not all of these things, right? To some degree, like as teenagers or whatever, like you're super into it. But like, if not, then you just become like a weirdo on the internet, and you have to be able to like compartmentalize and like be an adult a little bit.
Damn, that poor bastard. He should dump her. That's what I'm saying. Just dump her right now. What are you doing? But let's wrap this bad boy up and head towards the plugs. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. How about you, Lavie?
Yeah, follow me on X, Lavie Marg, LAVIE-MARG. Check out my long form articles in 2 places this week. On linecupjobsearch.com to talk about AAA's impact on the U.S. potentially, and check out the Wrestling Estate for drawing a collective of 10,000 fans, and of course, join the LinkedIn group, The Business of the Business.
Awesome. Thank you, Lavie. Thank you, BJ Bethel, for joining us and shedding some light on some very controversial topics lately for, whatever reason. They definitely are. But thank you, everybody out there, for listening. See you right back here next week for a little Business of the Business.